9.
Before the pandemic, Dan King had his own cleaning business.
10! Yay!
But as lockdowns hit, his work dried up.
Ah.
The costs at home, however, kept increasing. The family were fighting for a diagnosis for his 4-year-old son Dante, who they suspected, like his 5-year-old daughter Allegra, had autism. In the end, they had to pay £1,500 for a private diagnosis, money they simply didn't have.
We have multiple credit cards that are pretty much maxed. I am in quite a large overdraft with my bank. I'm trying to pay back at the moment, so we are definitely out of pocket, both from the pandemic and from trying to get these diagnoses sorted.
That must be tough.
It's depressing. It's really depressing to think that you're in debt, which no one wants to be in debt. No one chooses to be in debt.
The family now rely on Mom Lauren's wage, universal credit and a carer's allowance, but it's still a struggle to make ends meet.
If I wasn't needed as the carer for both my children, I would be at work. It is difficult. I don't like using that word though, because I'm a parent and they're my children. I don't like using that word, but it can be, and it is very difficult.
Even before the pandemic, families with a disabled child say they felt forgotten about, that every penny of help they got for them was a battle. But a survey of almost 3,000 of these families, given exclusively to Channel 4 News, shows how much harder things have got for them since the pandemic and the huge financial impact that it's had on their lives. During the pandemic, nearly 2/3 of families with a disabled child say one partner had to stop working to care for them, losing an average of over £21,000 a year. Over half of these families had to shield in order to protect their child. And of those, 1/3 got into debt. And all of this before universal credit cuts kicked in.
We've seen that families have been hit financially, emotionally, physically, and of course raising a disabled child is more than money, but it's vital. So we really want to see the government step up and increase support to families with disabled children.
8-year-old Harry has an endocrinal condition, so he had to shield during the pandemic.
Children that go to hospital.
It meant his mum Chrissy had to give up the job she loved in a care home to look after him.
Having to change from having a full wage to going on to carer's allowance and universal credit was quite difficult. And it's hard trying to figure out which bills you need to pay first. You know, which ones can I hang off for another week? You know, it's constantly just in my head. I'm like, I've got to pay this, I've got to pay that.
Every month is a struggle for Chrissy, especially with the high costs for them to travel to and from hospital.
It's so hard trying to just be this super parent that can do everything. We're trying to pay bills, and then I'm like, I've got thousands of phone calls I've got to make just to try and sort out money.
The impact of this pandemic will be felt for years to come, but maybe no more so than in those households that had no choice but to plunge themselves into financial insecurity to protect their families.